The Magicians podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic, and Gigio.
Had a dream, had it made it. Now there's nothing dragging down me, yeah. 'Cause the dog gon' push it all out the way. Destined to break in, I found my way, yeah. Now ain't nobody gonna take it. 'Cause the dog gon' push them all out the way.
Hello my friends, welcome to a brand new episode of the Magicians podcast. Richard Young here. Thank you very much for pressing the download button. Hope you had a fantastic New Year's celebration. Welcome to 2019. I hope it's a great year for you ahead. We're going to start the new year with something very, very exciting, a competition. Oh yes, because of the ongoing crisis with the Magicians podcast Instagram page, myself and Martin Rowland, the CEO of Gigio, have come up with well, let's be honest, a plot to increase our followers on the Instagram page. So here's the competition. Well, here's the prize, first of all. If you win this competition, you will receive a free gold card registration to the Blackpool Magic Convention in February, courtesy of Gigio, and also a £50 credit at the Alakazam Magic stand at the Blackpool Magic Convention, courtesy of myself, the Magicians podcast. So how do you enter? Well, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is to follow us on Instagram and also tag us in a photo of somewhere that you listen to the podcast. Just show me where you're listening. I'm genuinely interested to know. I know this podcast is listened to all around the world. So get yourself on Instagram, take a photo of where you're listening to the Magicians podcast, and tag us in. On Instagram, we are at the Magicians podcast. And in order to be included in the competition, you also have to include Gigio as well. They are on Instagram at GetGigio. There are some terms and conditions for the competition. It ends on the 31st of January at midnight UK time, and Chris Cox is excluded from the competition. Okay, it's very exciting. I look forward to seeing your posts on there over the next few weeks, and spread the word about it, because I think it's a really good prize. Okay, let's check in with our friend Alan Hudson and find out what's going on this week. Alan Hudson.
Hey, Richard Young.
What's going on?
What's going on? Well, we should probably start with the big news.
What's the big news?
Still no mug, mate.
Still no mug?
Still no mug.
Wow.
I mean, it is Christmas, it is the holidays, and I'll be honest with you, I thought I would have had it by now.
I think I know why you don't have a mug.
What was that? Duncan hates me.
No. Duncan doesn't hate anyone, but you're not a backer of Magic Week. That's the way it works, me old mate. You have to become a backer of Magic Week. If you use Magic Week every week and you're enjoying it and you've used it for years, then you should be like a Patreon of Magic Week. So get yourself on there and make a little donation, and next thing you know, I think you'll have a mug.
Right.
But yeah, Magic Week, you can be a patron of Magic Week, which is a great thing. If you use it every week, you can support the cause. I think that's what you should do. Get yourself on there. It's a new year, become a patron of Magic Week, and support the cause. And I reckon if you do that, me old mate, you will get a mug. And in fact, lots of people, all the listeners can do that as well. They can all become supporters of Magic Week. Everyone should do that. It's a new year. Support Duncan and Magic Week. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love Magic Week. It's been out for years, hasn't it? And I still check every week. Still look at for sales. Still look at the wanteds, and it's just brilliant. It's really good. Even if it's a slow news week, it's still good that he updates it.
Every Saturday morning for the last, I reckon I've been around doing it for like 12 years, maybe longer. Every Saturday morning, I get straight on Magic Week, see what the hell's going on. It's brilliant.
Little tip, he updates it about midnight on Friday.
Does he?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is interesting. How was your New Year's Eve?
It was good. I didn't work, so in fact it was brilliant. No magic news. How was yours? You've been doing shows, haven't you?
Yeah. So we've had I've just had one of the craziest weeks of my entire life. So we've just done 18 shows in 6 days. We've done 3 show days every day for 6 days, including last night. So we're recording this on New Year's Day, and so last night we performed in the main square here in Toronto for about, well, they said it was going to be 50,000 people, but it rained, so I think it ended up being about probably 30,000 people. of which I would say about 29,000 of those 30,000 people couldn't see because everyone was holding up brollies.
Right.
But it was quite an amazing experience. Yeah, there was some a few technical problems, which were not magic technical problems. But there was this really sad thing which happened, which just for some reason in the middle of the cardboard box the music stopped. Just one of those things. It's going to happen, isn't it, if you do enough shows? But yeah, we had fun doing that. It was something I'll remember forever. But yeah, we've been doing so many shows this week that genuinely everyone's going a bit crazy here. And also people are starting to get a little bit poorly as well, which is just a bit too much.
That happens, doesn't it? All the time. If you're doing too many shows, it's like Panto, but it, what's it called? Dr. Greasepaint keeps you through, doesn't it?
Does it? Did you see any Pantos this year? I do love Panto season. Did you go and see anything?
No, I didn't see anything. No, nothing.
I think there was the big one in Wolverhampton, wasn't there, with Richard Cadell and Debbie McGee, and I believe that a lot of the set from the was it Paul Zerdin said this, that a lot of the stuff that was from the London Palladium show last year ended up in Wolverhampton, so I was really sad I didn't get a chance to see it, but that would have been great to see Debbie McGee with Sooty on stage, wouldn't it?
That'd have been good. So
I got some news actually. I'm going to leaky something which I don't normally leaky. We've done is this episode 76, 77? Richard Cadell, as you will recall, was one of my favourite ever podcasts that we made, perhaps my favourite actually, just because it really surprised me. I kind of thought it'd be a good podcast, and when I arrived it was a great podcast.
Yeah,
and also Richard it was really nice to meet Richard, and it was a really interesting afternoon. In fact, I was there with Rob James, who came with me that day. I've never forgotten it. It was fantastic, and I've seen Richard a number of times since then, and he's on that podcast. He talked about sort of how he sort of stopped doing stage magic when he was about 30, and then obviously everybody knows him now as the Sooty guy. But Richard in the last few years has got back into doing illusions, and he's been at Winter Wonderland the last couple of years with his illusion show, and I bumped into him and said, you know what, we should break all the rules and you should come back on the podcast. So next week Richard Cadell is going to be the first guest to return to the hot seat on the Magicians podcast for a second interview. What do you think of that, Hudson?
I think that's brilliant news, although you've broken your rule again about not saying who's going to come up the following week on the podcast.
I know. I'm breaking rules left, right and centre. It's a new year, and rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah, Cadell's an excellent one to have, but because you also you spoke to him a little bit, didn't you, at the junior day?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was a special one only. That wasn't recorded, was it? That was just like a little chat on the stage, wasn't it?
I do have it recorded, actually, so I might go through it and see if there's any little clips or nuggets that might be worth putting in with the episode next week. But I interviewed Richard Cadell on the stage at the Magic Circle for the Young Magicians Club at Junior Day, and then after that we recorded an actual second podcast, which is what's going to be out next week.
Right.
So it's going to be great.
Is that right? You did it then? Okay.
And it's just great. Again, I've already done the edit on it, and it's just Richard at his best. He's such a good talker, and he's got opinions, and sort of talks about why he decided to go back and revisit the world of illusions and stage magic, and it's a fantastic podcast. So that's next week, and
he's brilliant. And can I say, last week's podcast, Matt Edmondson, I thought it was fantastic.
You liked it?
I honestly, I thought it was one of the best yet.
Well, Duncan Trillo said that as well, didn't he? On Magic Week, I saw he listed it, and then he put a little comment at the end saying he thought it was one of the best podcasts to date. So yeah,
I'll be honest, I'm avoiding Magic Week until I get a mug. not read it.
Well, Duncan Trillo says it, so it must be true. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode with Matt Edmondson, if you thought, the guy's not really a magician, why do I want to listen to this? Go and listen to last week's episode, because Matt is he's a radio presenter, so he's a great talker, and his story going from working for Marvin's Magic, then demming Svendex in Greenwich Market to...
Did he tell you how much he made on the Svendex in the end? Did you ask him afterwards? Because as Andrew O'Connor pointed out, you are obsessed with money. And one of the questions you asked him was, how much did he get? So, did you have a little conversation afterwards, and did he tell you how much he made?
I didn't. My podcast with Matt ended rather abruptly, actually. He had to go. So, no, we didn't. It was one of the few podcasts I've made where I didn't get a great chat after the record button was turned off. In fact, the podcast was recorded almost in two parts because he was interrupted halfway through. Obviously, I edited it out, but there was quite an important phone call, and he went for about half an hour, and he came back, and then we literally had to rush through to get to the end of the interview. So no, I have no additional intel on what happened with that situation afterwards. But yeah.
That's a shame. Yeah, but you know, there was loads of great stuff that came up on it, and you know, the stuff about the pre-show stuff where that was interesting when he was talking about how it's completely, you know, he thinks it's okay. You called him on it, which was good. Yeah, because you know, I know you're all about the tough questions.
Well, also, I think it's what everyone. The reason I called him on it was because I know you guys are listening to it, thinking it. So I know if you're thinking it, I'm thinking it, then I've got to ask him.
But he would give a really good answer, didn't he? He'd give a really good thing. Are they amazed? Is it the same as reframing something in the audience's heads?
Yes. Which
I think it is. Some people obviously go way beyond that, which is sort of taking the piss a bit, isn't it? But I think I thought it was a really interesting bit. And I'll tell you what else I thought was interesting. You also called him on what they call gang shows, or as we call it, ensemble magic shows. Sorry. So you know, he was saying, oh yeah, there might be another ensemble magic show coming up, and you said name one good one, and then he was saying about the people that came from it, and like the 11 o'clock show when he mentioned about, like, you know, Ali G and Ian Lee and all those sort of people, I'd never really thought of those ensemble magic shows like that.
No.
That, yes, I don't really like them that much, but it does give people a platform, doesn't it, to get some TV credits, to get some airtime, some clips, to then maybe propel them onto other things.
Yeah, also, do you know what I thought about when I listened to it back, and I didn't think of it at the time in the interview, was you could argue that Fool Us is a bit of an ensemble magic show. You know, every week there's different magicians and everyone's got the same opportunity. And who was it who was the breakout star of Penn and Teller Fool Us? Piff, right? He had 7 minutes like the rest of us, but he was the breakout star. So yeah, Matt was right, actually, although we all roll our eyes at the idea of ensemble magic shows, and yeah, I sort of said the point, like, is it even possible to make a star? The reality is, I think, yes, it is. If you've got something really interesting and different, if you were given an opportunity on a platform like that, you could end up with your own TV show or being a household name one day if you really do something different. Do you agree?
Yeah, it was a new perspective I'd never really thought about before, because I'd, just like you, kind of thought, oh, I'm not really into them, they're not really that good, are they? There's no, you know, nobody becomes the magician if there's 5 magicians on it. Who, you know, what is it? We can all do magic, can we? The message gets a bit lost, but in actual fact, he's right.
Didn't you turn one down once? Chat me up. I think you did. You turned one down once, didn't you?
I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, what else? What else did he say? Oh yeah. So here's another thing I thought was fascinating from Matt's thing. He has written a magic book for kids.
Have you seen this book?
I've seen a picture of it. I haven't actually seen it.
It's amazing. I've seen it.
Yeah, no, it does look good. I've seen the game that is also
Barma Lama.
Barma Lama
one as well.
He's a radio presenter. He's a TV presenter. He's done voiceovers. Right, it's got a production company, interviews celebrities, comes up with format ideas. So my question is, Young?
Yeah.
What have you done? That is a lot, though, isn't it? That is
amazing.
You could say that to anybody. You could list that and then say that to almost anybody else.
He's another magician who identified early on the disease that is close-up magic and got out. That's what happened. You know, he got out and went, "Oh, this isn't for me. I'm gonna."
Well, he said that he never wanted to do it. So he never wanted to, you know, be a magician. He always knew what he wanted to do, and he did that thing, which is interesting, isn't it? You know, because for me, it's like, I think magic's like a game of Jumanji, right? For me, I got sucked into it, and then I'm playing the game. It's a weird world. I can't get out. That's it.
Can't get out.
I'm in it.
Yeah.
Right. And but he knew what he wanted to do. He knew he wanted to present on TV and stuff. And have you ever heard that theory that you always get the one thing that you really want?
Yes.
Have you ever heard this?
Yes, I have heard this.
So if your thing is, you know, kids, or you want to own a house, or you want to be a professional magician, or you want to be a nurse, or whatever you want to do, you nearly always get that thing because you tend to push other things in your life aside to get that thing. So, for instance, Dynamo, since he was about 14, always said, I want to be famous. I want to be famous. I want to be a famous magician. And he made that happen, didn't he? Because he just pushed everything else. So tunnel visioned, he just made that happen. And I think that's the same with Matt, isn't it? Matt just kind of went, he did magic as a hobby, but he never thought, I'm going to be a professional magician. It was just, I want to be a TV presenter. And he made that happen. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. I think you're right. I think if you just definitely go after one thing, the chances are you're going to get there. And I think we all get the picture gets a bit blurred, doesn't it? Where you're going, oh, actually, you know what I want to do? I want to do 12 weddings next month rather than 10. And suddenly, before you know it, you're 50 years old and that's all you've done. Yeah. Hey, here's something.
Oh yeah, go on.
I was just going to change the subject actually, which was big news this week, which is Mr. David Berglas has become an MBE. Your thoughts on that, Hudson?
My thoughts on that? Well, congratulations to David Berglas. And yes. Did I ever tell you about the time that I spoke to David Berglas at the session?
No, please do.
So this is what happened. It was about midnight, and David had been chatting to other people, and then I saw him sat there on his own. Now I know he is. I'm aware of his work. I've never chatted to him before, but I thought now's my chance because he's on his own. Right, I'll go and speak to the great man himself. I went over, introduced myself, and asked him a few questions, and we had a little chat for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then he started yawning and went, "Oh, well, it's been a late night. I think I'm really tired. I need to go to bed." And I thought, well, it's fair enough. He's an old guy. It's midnight, maybe just gone midnight now. And I went, that's fine. I went, well, nice to meet you. Anyway, about 2 hours later, saw him there, having a drink in the bar, lapping up. I mean, it'd have only been worse if he'd been doing shots off the bar, Coyote Ugly style.
That's great.
Unbelievable.
That's fantastic. What a great story that is. That's my favourite David Berglas story I've heard in a while. Brilliant. Yes.
But anyway, congratulations on the MBE.
Congratulations, David. I was very lucky to do that special podcast with him on his 90th birthday a few years ago, and the story of making that podcast is one of my favourite stories to tell friends and stuff over dinner. Just the process we went through to make that podcast. It sort of was it was quite involved, and there was some funny stuff that happened along the way. So if you ever sat at dinner with Richard Young, ask him about making the David Berglas podcast, because it's one of my favourite stories to tell.
I've heard it. It's very good. And, hey, I've got one more thing just to mention about Edmondson interview.
Yes.
Just before I forget, it was a really good bit, and it's a really good lesson, isn't it? Because he said that he emailed Anthony Owen every single day for a year.
Yeah.
Right, to get the work experience, to go and do the dream job and that work experience. So I think what we should do,
yes,
is now that Matt has got a production company, we should encourage everybody here to email Matt Edmondson every single day. Can we give out his email address now? Have you got it on hand?
Oh, let's just give out his phone number. What do you reckon?
Give out his phone number.
Yeah, no, that was amazing, that bit. And, I do believe him. He's such a driven guy. And do you know what's fascinating then? Fast forward, he tells that story of him bothering Anthony. Fast forward a number of years. A couple of years ago, Strange and I were working on a TV project, and they were both on set at the same time.
Right.
And sort of Matt was in charge.
Was he?
It was fascinating. It was. I don't know if that was exactly the dynamic, but the format we were making, Matt had come up with, so he was.
It was his. Yeah, it was his idea, at least. Yeah.
And Anthony was there, obviously, involved as well. But it was like, going from the guy who used to email every day to try and get a job, now suddenly they're equals here on set. So, that's the other thing. Here's something I want to talk about, Hudson.
Yeah, go on.
Young magicians. Be nice to young magicians, because they remember, don't they, if you're not. My great friend, Edward Hilsom, I'm not going to name names, okay? But, if you see me somewhere, I'll tell you who. My great friend, Edward Hilsom, told me a story many years ago of a very well-known magician being a bit of an idiot to him at a magic convention, just being a bit dismissive and a bit kind of like, yeah. And Ed has never forgotten. He's never forgotten. And this magician is respected and liked in the magic world, but Ed has never forgotten that this guy was dismissive of him when he was a kid. So always be nice to young magicians, always give them your time, show an interest in them, and, you know, be nice. But I remember Faye Presto being really nice to me when I was about 12 years old, and, you know, I never forgot that, actually, that she was. So, yeah, be nice. That's
yeah, no, that is a good lesson. They do remember, and what they might remember as well is when they get famous, they might give you a job one day. So
yes, exactly right. So,
so if nothing else, just think ahead, play the long game.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I do actually. I if young magicians want tricks and things like that, or they ask for advice, I've got a couple at the moment that Facebook me and just ask for advice for things, and you know, it doesn't take long, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you're a jobbing magician. You got nothing going on most of the time. You got the time, haven't you? Just send them a little message back.
It's nice as well. You feel good, don't you?
So if there's any young magicians
feel good, like,
listening to this, and you want any help whatsoever with anything, email Alan Hudson. He'll take time to reply to you.
Yeah, I will actually. Yeah. it's fine. I mean, they won't do it. Most of them don't, do they? But yeah, email me.
So I'm very excited about
info@richardyoungmagic. Email me at my email address. Hey, another thing that Matt Edmondson said.
Yeah.
And this is great news, because he thinks there's going to be space for the next TV magician.
Yes.
Right. So this is what I was thinking. Right. So he was talking about we're looking for the new Paul Daniels.
Yes.
So I was listening intently, and I thought, this is incredible. Because comedy magician, yeah?
Yes.
Northern.
Yes.
Yeah, he said he wanted somebody with personality.
Yes.
You know who that is, right?
Pete Furman.
Who's coming up on this episode, Young?
This week's episode is genuinely very exciting. So, Kayla Drescher is a magician based out of Los Angeles, although she's actually from the East Coast of America. And the reason I'm very excited about this episode is because where are you from, Hudson? Hull, right? I'm from Oxford. We're from the little place called the UK, right? And I know that's where about 60% of the listeners of this podcast are from, because I get all the stats. And if you've ever wondered what it's really like to be a jobbing close-up magician in the USA, you are about to find out. And this is a great podcast. I'm genuinely very excited about it. I did the edit a few days ago, and this podcast was recorded here in Toronto, but it was recorded actually here before we came here to do the shows. Kayla and I came here to do some promotional work. In fact, the day this podcast was recorded, we both got up at about 5 a.m. to go and do some radio together. And and so we recorded the podcast, but she shares all about, she also lived in Las Vegas for a little while and tried to be a jobbing close-up magician there. And as you're about to hear, it didn't quite work out.
That's what we want to hear. You don't want success stories all the time, do you? You want the failures.
Exactly, and this podcast has this. So obviously, as you also know, Kayla's been in Champions of Magic with me now for about a year or so.
She was on Foolers. I saw her on Foolers. She did a good job on that, and she did the heart thing, didn't she, with Teller?
That's right. Yeah.
You ever seen it? Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it hundreds of times because she does it in Champions of Magic.
Oh, does she? She did that thing, right? Okay. Yeah. No, it's great.
But no, this is genuinely a really great podcast. This podcast you're about to listen to is great because it's got, as all the good podcasts do, it's got a little bit of everything. Kayla's a great talker.
Oh, that's good, because if you listen to UK magicians, we often have the same perspective, right? And that's one of the things with Matt's episode of talking about magic, but coming from a slight outsider. That's what you want from podcasts, isn't it? You want a slightly different perspective to something to make you think afresh about things. So I've now think differently about ensemble magic shows and stuff. So I can't wait to hear that. Her thoughts on close-up magic and what it's like doing it in a different country, and what the market is and how it differs and stuff. That'll be great.
And also, she toured the UK earlier this year, so it's also, you're going to hear her perspective, what it was like as an American to come and perform for a British audience, and the kind of things she had to kind of deal with that, as obviously British audiences are very different. So this is a fantastic podcast, Hudson. You're going to love it, and I'm going to talk to you about it again next week.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, speak then.
sat here in a hotel room in Toronto with Kayla Drescher. Here she is.
Hey, that's me.
That's you. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you, Rich?
Good. Well, I mentioned in the intro, but you and I have been out this morning and we did some PR together.
Yes.
Strange couldn't get out of bed, obviously.
Sure.
And so it was me and you. It was good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fun. I like sort of just showing up to PR and going, so what do you want to do? And then come up with something absolutely amazing.
What did we come up with?
I don't remember.
No, it wasn't very good. I think I screwed it up, didn't I? That's what happened.
I think nobody else knew that except us.
Yeah. So
but then we went back to a nap, so all of it's just sort of a blur now.
Like 5:30 a.m. my alarm went off. What time did yours go off?
Yeah, 6.
Oh my goodness
Yep.
me.
What I did was I kept my makeup on from last night's 11 p.m. PR.
Did you?
I kept my makeup on, so when I woke up, it just took me 5 minutes to go, boom, makeup, hair, done. And then I just walked down to the lobby.
This is a really interesting thing that people might be interested in. Obviously, you've been in, with Champions of Magic now for a year, but as well as doing the shows, there's a lot of this kind of stuff to do, isn't there?
Yeah.
This, when a show's on this scale, where you're going into radio stations at 6 in the morning, or you were doing a TV thing last night at 10 p.m. Wasn't
Yeah, it was quite late. Yep.
Do you enjoy doing it?
You know, all of it.
Yeah. Be honest.
No. It's sort of one of those things that I really want to perform, and I want this show to continue and kick butt. And so if I have to do PR, yeah, fine. I'm kind of indifferent about it now. I guess desensitized to doing it, but it's not my favorite thing. I don't jump at the opportunity to do PR unless it's something like Blue Man Group, because that was a dream come true to be able to work with the Blue Men. Yeah. That's cool, and you sift through all the other crappy opportunities like this morning to get to something really fun.
I was reminded this morning, because we were talking about it, that there was some PR that Strange and I did last year where they wanted us to do the cardboard box illusion, and we arrived at this TV studio at 6 a.m. To do it, and at that point everybody realised that their TV cameras, because it's the news, were locked off at sort of above waist height. There were no cameramen. So we continued to do it, of course, because we're idiots.
Sure.
Basically, the audience at home just saw the kind of top 6 inches of the cardboard box. That really sums up Young and Strange quite well, actually.
Yeah.
So,
It's great.
Yeah, so what we did this morning then is there were 2 hosts, and there was you and I, and we did an interview, and then so we decided that we would both force a card, and then it's the old trick where you get it wrong, but we had each other's cards, each other's spectators' cards.
Yep.
Well, it's a good trick, actually, but I sort of messed it up, because I said to the guy, "What is your card?" And you shouldn't have said that, should I?
I mean, it kind of takes away from just the switchy moment, but it actually worked out fine because we were on the radio, so they can't see anything anyway. Yes. It really doesn't matter. But it was totally fine. Also, the gentleman was pretty sure that Magic was going to be great on the radio because he's done it before. It was going to be awesome because he knew all the magicians in the world. Yeah. And you and I were like, I think you have to watch Magic in order to like it.
Actually, that was the amazing thing about this morning. It's the first time I've ever had this, because we're here in Toronto. We go into this radio station, and the guy says, "Hey, do you know this magician that I know?" And I'm kind of thinking he's probably going to say a close-up magician, someone I've never heard of. And he says Jay Sankey.
Right.
Who's obviously, he lives around here, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's big in the stand-up community.
Yeah.
So I think that's what he said, how he knew each other. But then he also, at one point, was like, have you heard of the name Doug Henning?
Yeah, you dealt with that very well. Because I was like...
He did not. I don't think he picked up on the sarcasm.
He didn't, did he?
No, but for us, we had a good time.
That was it. So,
I think my response was literally, when he was like, have you heard of Doug Henning? I said, yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, that's what you said, yeah. So I think my audience is going to be fascinated to listen to your story. So you're obviously from Connecticut originally, and you moved to Vegas for a little while, and then now you live in LA.
Yes.
And before Champions of Magic came around and other opportunities for you, you started making your living as a close-up magician.
Yeah, and I guess specifically behind the bar. Right. That was really my main thing. And then I would do strolling around a restaurant or anything like that. But bar magic is really where I honed everything and got better and got a thicker skin and developed material, figured out who I was as a performer. And that's when I was living in Boston. And then after that is when I moved out to the West Coast.
Because you went to university in Boston, didn't you?
I did, yes, yeah.
We were in Boston last week, weren't we? And you had lots of people come to see you, obviously, from your years. How many years were you in Boston then?
6 total, including college, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I like Boston. And
you liked it?
What was the thing that we did that was fun? The Dick's place.
Oh,
I
Dick's
didn't go,
Last Resort.
I didn't go with the group, but I popped in there yesterday. Tell them about this amazing place.
Yeah, so I got to take Sam Strange. It was just the two of us in Boston, and that just made the most sense. So when you go, if you know this place, everybody, all the servers are very rude.
It's great.
And there are different levels of rude depending on how much you can take. So we sat down, and I'm very excited. Sam has no idea what's in store. And the server comes over with her thick Boston accent and says, "Listen, I'm not nice, Kay." And Strange just says, "Wait, what?" And she says, "I'm not nice, okay?" And he says, "Wait, what? I'm okay, whatever you want." And of course you can hear his accent. And she goes, "Oh, God, this is why we won the war." And then left. And he was so happy to understand that there was a bit at this restaurant, that he just had so much fun. So yeah, that was a really fun experience. And that's in Quincy Market, which you got to do as well, right?
Yes, I really love Quincy Market. I went a couple of days later. Fantastic. Boston was great. I really liked it. And also went kayaking as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we went kayaking on the Charles River.
Yep.
Strange, me and Fernando. And when we were right out in the middle of the water, we stole Fernando's oar, and then we just paddled back and left him in the water.
I think that it's very well deserved. If he can escape Houdini's water tank, he can escape a kayak on
get out of that
Charles.
one, Chico. There we go.
We went to the museum.
We went to the Science Museum, which was we were furious about because it was $28 to get in. And if actually we'd have just gone with you, we would have got him for free.
You would have, yeah.
Because you used to work there.
I did, yes.
Yeah. That was your job when you were at uni?
So after my last year of school, I interned in the animal center there. So I helped take care of all of the about 125 species of wildlife. And then after I graduated, they hired me as part-time. And it was just such a great experience because I got to work with all these different animals. So that when, the producer of our show says, "Hey, Kayla, can you do a trick with a scorpion?" I kind of feel comfortable with a scorpion.
Yes.
That's not happening yet, but that was a discussion last night. So it's just a good experience. You really learn caring for another living thing, and I think that was really beneficial. Also, I learned just a lot being there, and I get to go for free.
This is great. Now, actually, I'm going to go into this now because I'll forget to come back to it because you've just reminded me, obviously. So I'm very, very interested in this. I've been looking into it recently, and actually you are a vegan.
Yes.
So can you... what I love about this podcast this year is that it's just we can just talk about so many interesting things. There's no rules. And so what's life like? I'm really interested on the road as a vegan when we're traveling around.
It's so hard on the road. Sometimes I will have eggs because there's just nothing else and we have a show, or something that's made with eggs and butter, like a croissant or a bagel, minimally, but it's very difficult. I also don't eat gluten. I'm not really supposed to eat gluten, and so that really screws me up terribly. Luckily, when we were in Boston, our crew and our producer have been really awesome for me, just saying, like, if I eat this stuff, I won't be able to do a good show because I'll be sick. So can you help me? And they have put into our contract writer, and we're working out very specific details moving forward so that venues are able to provide the proper food for me to be able to actually eat and feel alive.
Yes.
But yeah, it's incredibly difficult. You do find things that work for you. When we get to stay in like Airbnbs where there's a kitchen, it's even better because then I can just be making stuff and preparing what I know will work. But yeah, it's the no cheese thing is the easiest because you can get something without cheese, no problem. But it's the milk or the butter and the eggs that are incredibly difficult.
Have you always been vegetarian, vegan? Or?
I became a vegetarian when I was 14 years old because I had eaten a piece of chicken at a Chili's restaurant. It was purple inside, and I just freaked out and said, I'm never eating meat again. But I've never had a hamburger. Like, I just never liked the idea of red meat. Always just really loved animals, and so I don't like the idea that I could, if I eat something, I could taste an animal that at one point could have tasted me, in a sense.
Wow.
Like, if, cows are so cuddly and adorable and give you a big kiss,
yeah,
and then you're like, dinner time. No, it didn't really work out in my brain.
So, so when you were in Boston college and university, is that when you started working professionally as a magician, or?
It was about 6 months after I graduated college because I thought I wanted to go into this science field, environmental science. Like, I wanted to save the world.
Yep.
With green energy and such. But I absolutely hated being behind a desk and not working with people and not making people laugh and have a good time. But also I just really missed doing magic. And so I absolutely quit and started doing it professionally.
And that was when you've been back to Connecticut?
So I stayed in Boston for 2 years after that, working as a professional magician and a bartender, as well as, just the museum and a couple of just odd things here and there, until I was really figuring out what I wanted to do with magic, because obviously you have to eventually make a choice on, do you want to do illusions, close-up, comedy, making all of those decisions, and also just building my repertoire. I really didn't do magic for the 4 years of university, so I was just trying to build it all up again. And it was after the Copperfield contest. It was about a year after the Copperfield contest when I picked up, and I moved back to Connecticut just to get all of my things in order, and then I moved out to Vegas.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify something, because if I'm wondering this, I think some of my listeners might be someone British. When you say bar magic, do you mean literally you were working in a bar and you're sort of working as are they coming to see a show, or is it are you a server that also does magic? Like what is it exactly? Because I'm just not sure as a Brit.
Yeah, so the way that I had done it was often, if you know the name Doc Eason,
yes,
a very Doc Eason style. So I would bartend and be making drinks and chatting everybody up, and then there would sort of be, sometimes it would just be a little pieces of magic for people here and there. There might be 1 or 2 guests at the bar, do something for them. But at times it would get incredibly full. And there ended up being a built-up reputation of this hotel that I worked at, that there was a magician behind the bar. And people started coming to see magic. So our managers were amazing, and they would say, all right, Kayla, we'll cover drinks. You go ahead and do a 10, 15-minute show. And then I would just sort of pop up and do a 10, 15-minute show, which then became 20, 25 minutes, half hour, an hour, and it just sort of grew from there. So I would be behind the bar, standing on sort of a little bit of a platform just to give myself some attention, and people all around the bar at all possible angles watching magic.
So you mentioned the Copperfield contest.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a bit of a Copperfield fan. Those people
Are you?
Yeah, those who listen to the podcast will know. I'm also a Steve Wyrick fan. I don't really see how we can shoehorn him into this interview, unfortunately, but definitely you've mentioned Copperfield.
Yes.
You're a Copperfield fan?
Yeah, a little bit.
So just tell us about
A
this
little, I mean a lot, yeah. Not you level, but...
Because you don't know this, right? But basically, obviously, we met for a year ago, didn't we, for the first time? Maybe 18 months ago?
Yeah, when we filmed Fool Us.
It was a coincidence that Young and Strange filmed their episode of Fool Us on exactly the same episode that you filmed yours, although we didn't end up, I don't think we ended up in the same episode on TV.
I know we did, actually.
Oh, did we?
I believe we did. I think you guys were, I think we were in the actual same episode, but we did at least film, so we got to hang out in the green room beforehand and everything.
And that's where we met.
Yes.
And I think I freaked you out a bit because I knew quite a lot about you.
Yeah,
and
it was just a little scary.
Yeah, and it's because you won this Copperfield contest. So,
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it for those who haven't seen it? Obviously, you can YouTube it. It's still on YouTube.
Yes, but you shouldn't, because what I did was terrible.
Oh, it was how many years ago as well?
Oh, gosh, so this would have been May of 2013.
Okay.
So 5+ years ago. So this was, I'd been working as a full-time professional magician for about 6 months, doing stuff behind the bar, doing that magic, and I had just taken home a sort of a bag of bottle caps one day and was like, I'm going to figure out how to do something really cool with beer bottle caps, and just started fiddling with them for a weekend. About 48 hours of no sleep, and I kid you not, I probably slept for 2 hours in that time because I was just playing with these bottle caps. I figured out all these properties that they had, and just realized that you could do coin magic but better with these bottle caps because of the ridges that exist.
The grip you can get on them, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I've developed this move, and then I cut them up and made a gimmick that's different than other sort of shell gimmicks that exist already, and just modifying what already existed in the world. And then a friend of mine, his name's Evan, magician in Boston, great, very creative magician, mentioned to me that there was this Copperfield contest, and he was going to submit something, and then he sent it to me. And about I would say 12 hours before it was due, I said, I'm going to film this and submit it. And so I did. Next morning, I got a phone call from the Today Show saying that they were interested. Could I refilm it from a different angle? Did that. Next morning, had a train ticket booked down to New York. Filmed it live on the Today Show with very big names in broadcasting in the U.S. and, of course, Copperfield,
yep.
Along with Jeff Brace and, whatever his name is, the other one. There were three of us.
There were three
there
of
were
you.
three of you. Ben, hi Ben. So there were 3 of us, and we competed live on the air, in a sense, against each other.
I mean, it's a little bit like the idea of Fool Us, although you're not trying to
Yes.
fool it, but basically it was Copperfield stood there, and you 3 performed, and then effectively he gave feedback and chose his...
Yes.
And there was a prize, right? Which was to see his warehouse.
Yeah. So the prize was fly out to Vegas, see his show, do a tour of the warehouse. So I won that, and that was pretty insane.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I got to fly out. I saw the show when it was it's still one of the best magic shows, but that particular version of the show I think is one of the best magic shows I've ever seen in my life. And then saw the warehouse. It was like 4 hours just walking around this warehouse and holding things that at one point I just like cried because I couldn't understand how amazing it was what I was holding. Yeah. I was holding the Robert Houdin broom suspension harness.
Yes.
For his son. He's just holding it, and I didn't know what it was. And David's like, "What do you think it is?" And I said, "It looks like a broom suspension harness." He goes, "But do you know whose?" "No, that's Robert Houdin's son's." And that's when I just lost it. Like, what is this day? I don't understand this joy. So yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Actually, we've talked about it in real detail, haven't we? Because I've been lucky enough to go around the warehouse as well. And actually, one of the loveliest things, as you just said, just how lovely David treated you.
Yes,
and
so
everything.
much.
You had a great experience from beginning to end. So
yeah,
that's amazing. So I think what most people probably know you for listening to this podcast is your appearance on Fool Us.
Yes.
And your heart's routine with the tissue paper. Can you talk to us about that routine and sort of its origins, its background, who you worked on it with? Because I mean, I believe it's the best thing you do. I hope.
Oh, thank you. Wow, it's very nice.
Yeah, I hope that kind of is a compliment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm very proud of it.
It's great. Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to see the routine, it's also on YouTube. Just type in my name and Fool Us. But in essence, I was listening to just a series of music while doing some work one day, and as I think we all have, years before this moment, I had a breakup that was very sad and took me a long, long time to really get over. And sometimes you just let it go and get over it, right? And you're just like, yep, okay, great, time heals, everything's wonderful. And sometimes there's just a little kind of thing poking in the back of your brain. It's like when you see that they're having success on Facebook, you kind of get really mad and just want to punch your computer screen. That's sort of where I was in this time. And I heard this piece of music by the Piano Guys. It was their version of 1,000 Years by Vanessa Carlton. And I just sort of sat and I just hit it on replay. And I listened to it for probably 20 times and just came up with the routine in my head. Just visualized exactly how I wanted it to look and pulled out some paper and did it in the show the next day. Wow. This is not how I work. I'm not some weird creative genius. This is the only time something like this has ever been created that quickly and efficiently. And it used to be in a little much more difficult and not pretty. Like it was in a box, and you could tell if you really paid attention where I was making steals from. And as best as I could make them, there was a box sitting on my lap, so it didn't look great. And then I submitted it for Fool Us, got on. I had, my mentors helped me tweak things like scripting and the emotion around it and whether or not to make it funny or not funny, all of that. So just playing with it for like 2 years before I submitted it out to Fool Us. And then it was really Johnny Thompson and Michael Close who had switched it from the box to everything now happens in a purse hanging off of my shoulder, so it looks organic. And they suggested the purse. I created the Steal in the Ditch, which is absolutely insane. I don't know if you've watched it from Stage Right, but
I'm not sure.
You should watch it from Stage Right next show.
Really?
It's a little weird, and it's just very complicated. Sometimes a lot of magicians think they know what's going on with it, but it's way more complicated. It's just really dumb. But I'm very proud of it, and then we did it on Fool Us, and I'm just very proud of the routine. I think it's a good, sweet moment that has emotion, but yet is still funny. And it definitely helped me not hate this ex of mine, because I was just
really?
like, yeah, this is sort of the motivation for the routine, was that you're in love, then you hate each other, and then time passes, and you're still always a part of somebody's life, but it's good, you're fine, and we all can move on together. And so that was the motivation behind it.
Sweet. You mentioned your mentors. I'm fascinated by, you live in LA, you've got access to lots of people, you know lots of people. Who do you go to when you've got an idea, something you're working on?
So my main people, their names are Christian and Catalina. They're a couple who perform together in Indianapolis. They're mentalists, but they're comedy. And so I grew up sort of watching them and saying, I want to be that good at being funny and that creative and that interesting. And what I found really fascinating about them is that you love them, not just their magic, but you love them. You love their relationship. You love them individually. You can tell that they love each other so much. They have a fascinating story. And so I really latched onto them. And I'm very lucky that I asked them for some help and they were willing to help me. And I remember specifically I performed in Indianapolis. I did a 45-minute show that was absolute garbage. And I said to them, if you have notes, please give them to me. And they said, well, how honest do you want me to be? And I said, I need you to be honest enough for me to be able to do this at a good professional level. And so they invited me over. They cooked me some breakfast and then prepared to rip me to shreds for 3.5 hours. And it was the best moment of my entire life. So I always go to them with anything that I ever want to do.
I assume the breakfast was just eggs.
It was Hungarian pancakes, actually.
Okay.
But wouldn't that be funny? Just an egg and cheese omelet with a side of bacon.
That would have been...
Worst day ever.
Awkward, that would have been. So, talk to me about the... We did kind of touch on it, but talk to me about the move from Boston to LA. Or did you go to Vegas first? You went to Vegas first? Was that just you thought that was where your career could go to the next level because it's the magic capital of the world, or?
I knew that I started to see that everybody I admired in Boston and Connecticut and had looked up to my whole life because they were a good performer, I started to notice that I was getting better than them and that I was getting more work and everything. And I think that if I'd stayed in Boston, I'd probably have a lot of money and I would have been successful in terms of a business, but I wouldn't have been happy as a performer and a quote-unquote artist. It just wouldn't have been satisfied. So after going to Copperfield's for the contest, I left and said, I eventually want to live here just to understand something different. And I just made the choice a little while later to go. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no plan. I saved up a ton of money. It's absolutely not a place anybody should ever move if you want to be a magician, especially in the town you live in. It's totally awful.
Oh, please go into that in
more
detail.
Yeah.
I think in fact, you said this to me. I was thinking about moving, and you said don't move to Vegas.
Yeah.
So please tell us why, because I think most British magicians will find that staggering statement, but you've actually got the experience. So why do you say it?
So I lived there for only a year, but in that year, what I noticed is that one, as a woman, I was getting calls to do strolling magic in a bikini poolside. That's not something I do. I'm not comfortable with that, and I would never do that. That's me personally. So automatically I knew I did not fit Las Vegas, but I signed a year lease. So here we are. What I found was that when I wanted to do a stand-up show, nobody wanted to buy it, but everyone wanted to buy strolling magic for 4 hours for 1,500 people at the end of convention party. But I was being billed as atmosphere. So everything that I had worked towards for 20 years of learning magic and the last couple of years of my life was really honing and getting really, really good didn't matter because I was atmosphere. And I was getting paid the same amount of money as the people dressed up in wigs and costumes, just walking around and taking pictures. Mm-hmm. And no offense to them, because that's a totally hard, different job as well, because they've got to socialize and smile all night, and I respect them. I just felt I had a really significant skill and was really good at it to then only be considered the same level. I also hate strolling magic and I wanted to never do it again. And so I did as much as I could. Business is almost non-existent there.
This is fascinating, actually, because you would assume with all the conventions and all the corporate stuff going on that there is a lot of close-up work, but you said it's kind of the hotels kind of take care of it and there's agencies, and so you have to, it's not like they're not looking on Google for magicians like they do in London. It's different. They source it direct through the hotel. Is that right? Correct.
Yeah. So if you're staying at a hotel like Caesars and you're going to have a party and you want a strolling magician, you're gonna go to the Caesars concierge, and the concierge is going to direct them to the agency that's paired with the hotel. Then that agency is going to give you options. Because of the monopoly that exists in Vegas, there are really two big agencies that do all of that. They have the ability, because they're a monopoly, it's sort of like what Cirque has done. Cirque has just taken over all of Las Vegas to where they can charge whatever they want for tickets because you're going to buy it because that's most of the shows. This is the same situation. They'll charge whatever you want, but as the entertainer, you really don't get paid a good rate. So you're going there and you're hoping that you're going to pair with an agent. The agent's going to like you. They're going to sell you hard, that you're going to be able to do regular gigs, and you might get $100 an hour, which is very, very low. But again, it's atmosphere. So that's sort of what you're being billed as. Nobody actually cares about your talent or about you. And that's what I found. It just felt like a very superficial, seedy, all about the money type of business. And I really didn't like that. It just didn't give me the opportunity to be fulfilled like you would by doing a touring show or by doing your own show. You can create your own stuff.
So how far through, you said you signed a 12-month lease, how far through the 12 months do you go, when this lease is up, I'm out of here? How long did it take?
I think 4 months in.
Did it really?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. But at that time, I was going back and forth to LA for my now fiance Harrison. We did the long distance thing. And I, in that time, was able to really fall in love with what Los Angeles had to offer a performer. And as soon as maybe 4, 5, 6 months in, I actually had a job offer from Mac King, to be honest.
Did you?
I did, and so I was going to stay for another year to work as Mac's intern. So set up the show and do the merch and everything. And that was a very kind offer from him. And then it fell through. And so I said, well, then I'm just going to leave. And then as soon as I signed a lease in LA, he called me back and offered me the job again. And I was like, no, what a bummer.
You would have been able to prepare the cloak of invisibility every single day.
And the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree he's got the best gig in Magic?
I would say absolutely it's going to be top 5 best gigs in Magic.
Because he's literally, he's working 5 days a week. He's home in the evenings.
Yep.
He's done and my understanding is he's got an old... I don't know this for a fact, it's just what I've heard, that he's got a bit of an old school deal with the venue as well, that he's not hiring the room like is kind of the thing you have to do in Vegas. He's getting paid to be there. So
yeah, he is literally one of the only shows in all of Las Vegas that gets paid a flat fee to do the show. Everywhere else is coming, even Copperfield, that money's coming out of their pocket to be in the venue. He's one of the only shows that doesn't have to 4-wall in no producer, even if you look at Matt Franco, he's got a company that reps him that they're paying. Matt's not paying. Matt is being paid, but the company is paying to 4-wall.
Yes.
And Mac doesn't have to do that.
So that's the expression used, 4-wall, which is where you are effectively hiring the room.
Yeah, so and you do everything. You do all of the marketing, all of the decor, you do everything yourself. There's also, you can say 2-walling, which is you would have some sort of deal where they would do a lot more of the marketing and you would just be paying a fee. But yeah, most shows in Vegas are 4-walling, which was another thing. A lot of magicians move there and go, I'm opening my own show, and you really have to have $40,000 for the first weekend because that's probably what you're going to lose.
Wow.
And then you just have to hope that money's going to come in for you, or you need to be willing to do your show for free at a timeshare.
So talk to me about what were some of the positives about living in Vegas. Were there many things that were good?
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, and I think that for me was huge. So one thing I learned in Vegas was just pure business tactic, is getting a phone call and trying to negotiate a fee or explain to people why I'm your best bet. And there's a story I tell, which is I got a call from a client, not through an agency, the actual corporate client. And they said, we want you to come do a 45-minute show for about 75 people. We have rented out every room available on the bottom floor of the Aria. So this company has money. And so I say, great. And I think I'm going to give a rough number. I think I said, okay, for that, it's going to be $1,500. And they said, oh, we've got a couple of magicians willing to do it for between $75 and $100, that's very terrible rate. Like, how could you value yourself at such a low amount of money? And this was the only show I've ever done this, and I came down and I think I charged like $500 for the show. And I super regret it. It was an absolute terrible error. But after that, I started to actually value myself as a performer more, to where if they need to negotiate for price, I'm also negotiating what they get. If you want to buy a car, you can get a car with power locks and power windows, or you can have it for price A, or you can get it for a reduced price, and you're going to be cranking your own window. That's fine. You just have to be okay with that. And so that's what I really learned in Vegas. I'm very happy to have had some just hard knocks business, real life situations to then learn how to better run my own business.
I think that's, no one's ever said that on this podcast before about if you do get dragged into negotiation on fee to take something away so that there's some, well, it also justifies your original quotation, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? If you take if you just go, yeah, I'll do it for that, well then why was it ever that price in the first place?
Right.
So
Yep.
That's really interesting. So when you lived in Vegas, how many times did you see the Tommy Wynn show?
So just while I lived in Vegas or before that and after that?
Let's do all 3.
9 times.
That's the total times you've seen it?
Correct.
Okay. How many times while you lived in Vegas?
7.
It's fair to say it's your favourite Vegas show.
Absolutely.
And
hands down.
So, if you are at home and not driving the car right now, pause this podcast, and if you don't know Tommy Wind, go and watch some of his. He's a Las Vegas illusionist, because Kayla Drescher does the best Tommy Wind impression. And so that's what you've agreed to do it on this podcast, because you just do it so well. You've nailed his voice. Can you do your Tommy Wind impression? Go.
Hey guys, I'm Tommy Wynn. Welcome to the Tommy Wynn Magic, Music, Martial Arts, and More show. Listen, we're going to do some magic, we're going to do some martial arts, and we're going to do more. Guess what? I have a DJ. And when I was a kid, I always thought that in the speakers was a live band. So here's how I'm going to bring out a DJ. It's DJ Arlene, DJ MOM. Come on out. That's right. That's my mom. Now, in the speakers, we always thought there was a band. Let me show you what's really in the speakers. Guess what? It's a Things That Go Bump with my wife, Stacy. Here's my wife, Stacy, and my mom. Dad, let's play a drum duet. Dad! Tommy Wynn.
It's so good. It's so good.
I like particularly his recent appearance on Masters of Illusion, where he's like, and what is a good glass of red wine without somebody to share it with? My wife, Stacy.
I've watched that. That's absolutely brilliant.
Should we tell the Masters of Prediction story? The Masters Prediction?
What's that?
The
master,
share?
the master prediction. Yes. The box hanging from the ceiling with the glass tube in.
So there's a great moment where this is now probably show 4 that I've seen of Tommy.
Right.
And he does a master prediction, and his wife Stacy, she's writing down what the audience says. So he has one of the foam bricks. He's like, I'm gonna toss out this brick. I'm just kidding. It's a sponge. It's a sponge brick. I'm gonna toss it out. Whoever catches it, you caught it. Name a singer you want to see in concert. Any singer in the world. And they say, Cher. Cher. All right, Stacy. They want to see Cher. Write down Cher on the whiteboard. And Stacy writes down. I'll never forget just the moment of confusion in her eyes of how to spell Cher. And you think you know where this is going, and you don't. She wrote down CHAIR. And we all chair.
Right.
Oh, we lost it, and it was spelled right in the box, which was the best part. But then we went back to see the show again with a friend who had only ever heard this story, and he caught the brick, and he said, "I want to see Cher." And Stacy is no longer allowed to write, so Tommy writes it down. And
she's no longer allowed to write. This is be clear. We don't know that.
That's just the joke. And so he just writes down C and then like a straight line. So we have no idea what he wrote down. But then he says, all right, toss the brick to somebody else. Where you want to see Cher in concert? Anyone in the world. Where you want to see it? And somebody said Europe. And he wrote down EURIP.
That's brilliant.
And I absolutely lost my mind. And it's genuinely the greatest show I've ever seen.
Yeah, it
9
is
times.
Fantastic. I'm hoping Tommy Wynn's going to reopen in Vegas soon at the Tommy Wynn Theatre. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. He's right between Cirque du Soleil and David Copperfield.
He's in the warehouse building behind the Walgreens.
Yeah. It's great. It is a fun show to watch. I do highly recommend it.
He's going to get a flood of
magicians,
British audience members. It's going to be great.
Well, Steve Warwick's not in town anymore, which is a shame.
But he is on YouTube.
Did I tell you I spoke to Steve Warwick?
You actually?
This is a huge thing. Steve Warwick, as you know, if you're a regular listener, has been a huge running thread through these podcasts. And Fernando Velasco, who's in Champions of Magic, I just happened to mention to him one day that I love Steve Warwick. And he's like, oh, I know him. I've got his phone number. And we just gave him a call.
What?
And I had a chat with him about how when he appears in the middle of an audience. So, the magician disappearing on stage, appears at the back of the room. Well, Steve would always appear in the middle of a row with a popcorn and a drink.
Right.
Thought it was brilliant. So I had a chat with him about that. So
Nice.
I have had a conversation with Steve Warwick.
You know what I learned about just magic from Steve Wyrick is that when you think a thumb tip routine can't be good, if you just put it in a tank of water,
Yes,
it
yes.
could be.
Yeah. That illusion's brilliant. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
It's where the girl appears like in 2 or 3 seconds. It's a Fran Ferrari illusion,
Right,
actually.
right.
I looked into it and I assumed it was a mirror in the tank. It's not. Where the girl is hidden is amazing.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Michael J. Fitch says, it really enhances your business. Try it and you will love it. What is he talking about? Gigi-O, of course, my friends. Top professional magicians love using Gigi-O to manage their bookings and admin. It's an easy-to-use, web-based software that takes care of your inquiries, contracts, invoices, payments, and reports. You can generate professional PDF contracts in seconds and allow your clients to agree them online quickly and conveniently. It will even update the diary on your phone automatically. Read what other magicians say about it and take the free 30-day trial right now at getgigio.com. Gigi-O is spelled G-I-G-G-I-O. Don't forget also about the Blackpool Magic Convention free gold registration if you enter the competition on Instagram, which I talked about at the beginning of this episode. Just remember to tag in at getgigio.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
Myself in my own zone, never stopping. I made it and no, I ain't gone home.
So you moved to LA.
Yes.
And then, so this is what's incredible, really. You're starting, let's be honest, it's only 4 hours from Vegas by car, but effectively you're starting a new business again now, right? You're now trying to get work in LA. What's it like being a close-up magician in LA? What sort of gigs are available? Because the first thing British magicians may not know, there's no wedding industry in the United States. It doesn't. My close-up magic business, weddings are about 60% of what I do, maybe more actually, but it just does not exist here as a thing.
It's not as an industry itself. So we do have, the wedding trade shows where you can go and promote yourself as an entertainer for weddings. But to be honest with you, outside of Los Angeles, I've never seen a city where magic is so well respected. And I've only ever done weddings in and around Los Angeles. Never one, and I have friends that do it. They do a bunch of weddings, but not like what you have, not the industry that you have at all. 20% of somebody's work is going to be high. So yeah, when I moved to LA, I started with strolling. We have the Magic Castle, and the castle garners such respect in the city of Los Angeles because it is exclusive. You have to dress up. You can't get in. It just is an idea of, it really makes everybody love and respect magic so much. So everywhere else that I've ever gone, if I say I'm a magician, somebody will either say, well, what's your real job? Or do a trick, or, kind of a little bit condescending where they don't really understand that that's a real thing. But in LA, if you say I'm a magician, immediately they're in love with you.
That's amazing. So that venue, I've never been to the Magic Castle. I've slept in their car park once, but I've never actually been inside because I never had the right dress code.
Right.
And I gotta be honest, as this is just a Brit in me, I find it a bit annoying that I'd have to get dressed up to go in somewhere. But you're saying that because of that,
yes,
it's changed the entire city's attitude towards magic and magicians. They see it as a really great special thing that you dress up for.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will go for their birthday. Their company will rent out the entire building for an event where then the castle will hire magicians like myself to walk around and do magic for the guests. Katy Perry had her birthday party there. She's been banned from the castle now, which is a really fun story.
You have a striking resemblance to Katy Perry as well, don't you?
Thank you for telling me you're the first person today.
You get told that a lot.
Usually, if I'm especially in full makeup, like
Yes.
at a show, at least 2 people every show have told me.
There you go. So if you don't know Kayla Drescher, they go look at Google her now. She looks like Katy Perry.
I
Everybody
do.
knows you.
That's great.
Yeah. So Kate, she's banned.
Yeah, she got super drunk and like destroyed a bunch of stuff. So I guess
brilliant.
That's not exactly confirmed. That's the rumor that exists. But she did have her birthday party there. That is a thing that she talks about doing. Many people go. Really, the only time anybody talks bad about the Magic Castle is like Jimmy Kimmel. Because he did not like he went, they made him wear, they have just a closet full of extra clothing. So if you forget a tie, jacket, shoes, dress, whatever it is, they've got a whole closet, but of course none of it's going to be pretty or fit right. And they made him wear this big oversized jacket that he was really mad about. And so he's really the only person that just continuously speaks out about it. Of course, you have some of the creepy magicians that also make women feel uncomfortable while we're there. But overall, it's very, very well respected, which makes people then for their events want to hire a magician. And oftentimes they call the castle and say, I want to hire a magician that can do X, Y, and Z. Can you recommend somebody? And so I get a lot of work from that.
Wow.
Which is really great. And so if the castle likes you and you're a professional and you do a good job, you can get good work from them. You just sort of have to work your way up the ranks. But then you've got, because of the magicians there, you have all this performing opportunity around town. LA is a very creative city. People are constantly opening a show, working on a project, doing something weird and ridiculous, and there's always an opportunity to perform that. And so as a magician, if I want to try out new material, I have just, as long as I'm respected and I fight for that respect, I can just go into somebody's variety show and say, hey, can I do 5 minutes? Or go into a comedy club, hey, can I just do 5 minutes in your open mic? I'm going to do a magic trick. It's a very open to the idea of people are there learning to be a good performer. And so everybody's willing to say, yes, come on in. Let's try this. And if you don't do well, then you might be gone off the list for the future. But as long as you continue to be professional and hardworking, you're going to have opportunity there.
Yeah. So we have to have this conversation. I'm sorry to say, because it's
Tell
just
me.
it's just the you're a female magician.
Thank you.
So how have you found being a female magician? You do a podcast, actually.
Yes.
And this is a great time to talk about it because it's a podcast, and this is another podcast that you do.
podcast.
Tell us about the podcast you do, and it's about being a female magician.
Yeah, so my co-host, Carissa Hendricks, who is a magician in Calgary, Canada, and I particularly had gone through a really intense couple of months through the project, fighting for getting the idea out into the magic community about respecting women. Basically how this stemmed is that I had a really terrible night at the castle where it was just rampant with sort of sexual assault. And I left that very scarred, very broken, and a year later said, I'm going to do something about this.
Right.
And so I tried to do something about it and was just intensely shot down. And from that, I sort of took couple of months to just regroup, figure everything out. Then I called Carissa and said, I want to start a podcast. We're going to start a resource, and it's not going to be a big complaining fest. It's never going to be that. It's going to be content driven, information driven, and we're going to be the first living resource, the first resource in general for women who want to do magic. Because if you read any magic book, usually the method is trouser pants, jacket, big hands, whatever it else happens to be, just your body shape in general. So as women, we don't have any sort of resource like that. So this is it. We've started this resource, and through that we have a podcast, and the podcast is addressing a lot of stuff. So we address things like there was a performer who went into a college campus show that sexually assaulted an 18-year-old girl on stage, doing a very exaggerated form of Copperfield's cardiographic routine where he touched my leg.
Yeah, which to be fair to Copperfield is 20 years ago when the world was very different.
Absolutely.
And he was a superstar.
Yeah.
And so he would get a girl up on stage, do cardiographic, and they would stand back to back.
Right.
And he would get the girl to put a hand on his leg so they'd make a mental connection.
Yes.
He was a bit like a heartthrob back then, wasn't he? I don't think anyone was kind of offended by it. But again, the world was a different place. This guy, you said...
Well, I think one of the main differences is age. So David never called up a woman that was 30 years his junior. And that's what happened here, is this man who is 45 years old, or I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but he's a dad, called up an 18-year-old and said, hey, 18-year-old college freshman, put your hand on my leg, and then made a joke about getting a free feel out of it. And so we address a lot of stuff like that about why this is wrong and how we can move forward, how to look at your own act and see, like we came up with basically something called the hug scale, which is your act, is every line, every moment in your act, a hug from a best friend, a hug from a stranger, a hug from behind. And it's like, which would you, if just a stranger came up and hugged you from behind, would you feel comfortable? Probably not. So how do you rate your act in terms of that scale? So we're trying to make it really easy for people to understand what it's like to perform for women, as well as for women interested in performing magic. The difficulties, like calling up volunteers, is incredibly different than any other volunteer theory you could possibly look at. Like I can't call up a woman for a lot of stuff I do because it will feel very catty and competitive. If I do call up a woman, it's got to be teamwork. It's got to be she is way more incredible than I am, so that there's never a level of uncomfortableness there. So there's a lot of theory like that, approaching a group and strolling, what to wear, your props, all of that. So we've started this resource. We've got some great interviews. We did one with Max Maven about booking a diverse magic show. We've got one with Misty Knight. She was made into a meme, and so we talked to her about how she felt about that and what she did to fix the problem and how we can move forward from that. So we're very, very proud of the resource. And
so where can people find it?
Yeah, sure. It's called Shezam. It's SHEZAM pod.com. So you can find it there on all the social medias, Shezam pod. Please check it out, because I think it's going to be, so far the response has been that this is really beneficial for the magic community, just on all levels. And hopefully, if the more we sort of have these discussions, and Carissa and I are wrong sometimes, and we own that, and we talk about how we can learn from this too, but the more that everybody sort of comes together and learns from it, I think the better the community will be, slowly but surely.
So you've been in Champions of Magic now for coming up a year. You joined last November, was it?
Yeah, the end of the US tour.
The end of the US tour, you joined us. And I worked out this morning that I think, because you're the close-up magician in the show, you've done over 25 hours performing magic on a big screen for an audience.
Wow, what a number. What a crazy statistic.
I just totally made it up. I've got no idea how long you've done on the big screen. It must be something like that, right?
Well,
you do about 25 minutes a show?
Yeah, all on the screen.
And you've had quite an adventure with it, to say the very least, haven't you? Where every venue's different, obviously, and every time the screen's maybe a different size, or we've got different projectors, we've had technical problems. And I think it's really, we've never spoken about this on this podcast before. What have been some of your good and bad experiences? What have you learnt about performing on the big screen? One of the things you get complimented on a lot is you look down the barrel of the camera, don't you, at the people, so the people in the balcony feel like they're looking directly at you. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so doing close-up magic in a 1500 to 3000 seat theater is obviously incredibly difficult. Any time I've seen somebody do it outside of this, so any of the Yu Ho Jin doing his beautiful sleight of hand close-up magic on the table, or Shin Lim or anything like that, is often very much, it feels like you're just presenting something, at least to me anyway, where I didn't want to do that, and I sort of learned from them, watching them do it, that I wanted it to feel like, to everybody in the audience, I was standing directly in front of you, only talking to you. And so looking at that camera and looking directly into the lens and having you see the little movements in my facial expressions to understand my thought process is what I really focused on. So it did take a good couple of months in the show to figure out exactly how that should be done. And as well as our producer, Alex Jarrett, who does the camera, he and I really had to take time to figure out the timing of the camera angles, and he's so great with it that really we just worked out all of the comedy together over just the course of many shows. Doing close-up on the big screen is actually really fun because I do feel like it's more intimate, where even though I'm not looking at a person, I know that looking at this little black square is actually making it feel like I'm right there in front of you. So I actually have a lot of fun with it until the projector doesn't work, which is obviously when you rely on technology. and as you know, it does go down, and that's not to anybody's fault. There was one venue we did recently where it was just too hot and the receiver was overheating, so we couldn't get the camera to send to the projector. And so you kind of just go in that moment like, oh, okay, I've waited 5 seconds, it's not coming back on, let's all go up on stage. And so we would just all go up on stage and try to do it and try to make it big and just supplement the lack of visualness with more energy to where the appropriate people who can see what's going on, like the first 50 rows or so, can get the idea of like, yes, I see it. And then everybody else can go, okay, I can't see it. I understand she's struggling with something. I'm self-aware, make a joke of it. Magician in trouble, please love me anyway. And they tend to be fine with it. I just hate leaving a show going, no more projector. So it is a learning curve, and it's one of those things that you have to figure out, like, do you actually want to risk using technology or not? And right now I kind of don't. The risk is fine, but I think you and I have spoken that might change in the near future.
Well, there's a guy called Matt who works in our show, and he does the technical stuff. And I spoke to him about it because it is quite frustrating, obviously, when things fail.
Yeah.
And he said that they can test it all afternoon and
Yep.
it's absolutely fine. He's like, but it's all radio frequencies, and when you bring 3,000 people into a room, it's going to change some things sometimes. And so it's as frustrating for the crew and stuff as it is for us. But
Oh, yeah.
I do feel sorry for you when it happens, but you've learned to deal with it, actually, as you've just described in a really great way. So.
I think you have to, with the amount of shows that we do and the level of professional that we are at, we have to be able to deal with anything. That's our job.
Yep.
And it's live theater, and actors in musicals and plays, they have to be able to deal with somebody forgetting their lines or a prop breaking or somebody forgetting a dance move. All of that happens, especially when you're doing 2 or 3, maybe 4 shows a day. Things are going to go wrong. And magic, because there's so many moving parts, you're relying on boxes not to break, people to be there, costumes to stay intact, microphones, projector. You're relying on everything to work perfectly. It's not going to happen, especially with a magic show. You're going to get a crazy audience member, maybe who's had a couple of drinks or just really wants to, heckle the magician. Yeah, it's going to happen. So you just go with the flow. You have to, because that's what we do.
So you did a tour with us in the UK?
Yeah.
Earlier this year.
That was so fun.
UK tour, and you did a joke every show.
I did.
Which, can you tell us about, and you filmed it from the wing.
Yeah.
Tell us about the joke.
Okay, so the joke, basically what I wanted to do is I wanted the audience to understand that I'm very self-aware about who I am and where I come from. And so the joke was, I say, as you probably noticed, something fun about the show is that I'm the only American. I am so sorry. I didn't vote for him. And so that was the joke. It evolved over many shows. And I recorded every single one. And one day I'll release this video, but it's just very long. And I just wanted everybody in the U.S. to understand that he's not well respected outside of the U.S. And the fact that every single audience either laughed and applauded, I think is pretty telling. And I also wanted it to be aware. I wanted the audience to understand that I am very self-aware of what's going on, and that, maybe there's a little bit of tension where they're going, ugh, silly American, that I want everybody to understand. Like, nope, all on the same page. Here we go. Everything's great in the world. So it was pretty fun. One day I'll release the reaction video because I think it's pretty good.
And you're very interested in politics, aren't you?
Very.
That's fair to say. And actually, a lot of people, it's very different, actually, UK to US, in terms of a lot of people in the UK have had enough of talking about politics and Brexit around our sort of age.
Yeah.
But here, it seems very different. You guys and your sort of age group are very engaged in it. What is that? Just because everyone's so upset about Trump, or? No,
I think so. For me, the very first presidential election that I could vote in was for Barack Obama, and so that was
2008.
2008. Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to be 18, and I was so excited. I did all of my research, and I looked into John McCain and Barack Obama and the VP nominees and everything. I did all of my due diligent research. And it just felt really empowering to vote for the very first African American president and then him win. And that's not why I voted for him, but it felt really empowering to do so and to feel like I made a difference. And I remember sitting in our college campus theater watching his inauguration, and everybody was crying because we were just so happy that this progressive moment happened in our country. And from there is when I really got into politics, because I felt if my one moment of voting can actually make this much of a difference, like what else could I do? And so I just started being really diligent and keeping up with it and learning and everything. And then obviously this happened, and it's now more important than ever to me to be educated and make decisions, be able to have conversations, have my opinions morph other people's opinions, and just understand the country, because you think you get everybody, but you really don't when you look at it. Because if I understood everybody who lived in America, then I can't fathom why he's our president.
Someone said to me the other day, sorry, this is
No,
for
go
you
ahead.
probably very dull, but as a Brit, this is interesting, is that it's the kind of two coasts of America.
Yes.
Are very liberal,
Yeah.
and a bit like London,
Right.
And then the closer into the middle of America you get is a bit like when you go towards the north of England, where people voted for Brexit and things
Yes.
like that. So
Yeah, it's with the people who are leaving. Somebody that's between the ages of 18 and maybe 30 are no longer feeling comfortable in their own skin in their tiny little towns. That was me. I wanted to get out of my tiny little town of Connecticut as soon as possible because I just didn't agree with how life existed there. And so that's why I went to Boston and then all the way to LA, because there's just more people that get it and more people that there's a lot more love that exists on the coast because everybody's accepted for who they are. Where that doesn't exist in where I grew up, especially in a lot of middle America. If you are sort of one iota of defiant of the culture, of the lifestyle, it might be really detrimental for you. And so everybody's just moving. And so that, of course, affects the economy in these small towns and middle America states because people are leaving it. So there's no money to spend. The businesses are closing. And so, of course, let's blame someone. And then they're going to blame millennials, liberals, immigrants, and everybody's going to move away, and then it's their fault. And so that's sort of, you understand it. We're going on a really long political discussion.
And do you know what? This is what's fantastic about this, because it's nearly time to wrap this up anyway. But this is over 70 episodes of the Magicians podcast. This is the first time we have ever had a political conversation. So it's great. It's progress. It's moving more towards me being taken seriously as a broadcast journalist, which is what I'm hoping to be by the time this project finally wraps up.
So good at it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've got to be honest, I sort of didn't know what you were talking about for the last couple of minutes, but I just nodded along, and I think you could tell, which was...
I know when you don't understand what I'm saying because you nod, but when you're really into it, you're like just staring directly at the eye contact. As soon as you start being like, oh yeah, I know, nope, you've glazed over.
But honestly, I love the Tommy Wynn stuff. That was the best bit of the series so far. It was great. Kayla, listen, thanks so much. It's great being in a show with you, and it's lots of fun. And this has been a really fun episode. We've covered a lot of stuff, and I think the British magicians at home are going to really love the insight into being a close-up magician in America.
Yeah.
We haven't had that on here before, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Reggie.
Never stopping, I made it and no, I ain't gone home.
I did tell you it was a good one, didn't I? There we go. That was an insight into what it's like to be a close-up magician in the USA. Take a look at Kayla's work online and her podcast Shezam. It's available on Spotify and many different places. It's very interesting. Also, have a look at her hearts routine, which she did on Penn and Teller Fall Us with Teller. It's fantastic, and I think it really sums her up as a performer. That's it for this week. I will, of course, be back again next week with a brand new episode. Richard Cadell returns to the Magicians podcast, the first guest to ever come back. It's going to be a really good one. I look forward to seeing you again next Friday. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.